All right, it's the 29th day of the 10th month here on the island of Cyprus. Have the Mediterranean Sea looking south. We see this fresh grass. The grass is sprung up. It's sprouted just like it says in the Song of Moses. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 1 through 2, and that is a secret that Moses hid as to the timing of when these end time events are going to occur. And it's hidden in the book of Deuteronomy. Nobody has any idea, and that's why I'm making this video. So I'm going to be discussing the Song of Moses and how he concealed the timing. Everybody's thinking it's Passover or some other time, but nobody is looking at the time of the Song of Moses of Deuteronomy 32. Different than the Song of Moses in Exodus 15, this is a different timing of event. And it's all about the time of the fresh grass. It's all about the time of the tender herb of the field. The fields are flourishing. Had to pull over right now because we have some nice rain going here. And the time of the light rain on the fresh grass is what Moses is talking about in his Song of Moses. And that is the secret timing to the end time events when judgment's going to begin to happen. We need to be looking at it, and that time is now. A nice light rain just started. The fields are starting to flourish. As you can see, some of these flowers right here. We have some flowers, and it's flourishing. This video clip was filmed yesterday morning, and this is not rain. It had not rained yet. This is dew that had distilled on the fresh grass and on the tender herb. And Moses is giving us the time of the year when we should see events at the end start to happen. When? In the 70th Jubilee, which is the 120th Jubilee of man. The fields have begun to flourish. As you can see, here are the flowers of the fields flourishing. This is the time of the year that Moses talked about. There's only one time of the tender herb. There is only one time of the year of the fresh grass, and that's what Moses wants to convey to us. The time of the year that we are currently in. But this is what Moses was talking about. He's talking about the time of the tender herbs, and that's where we're at. The fresh grass. It's only one time of the year, and the time is now. We are in the 70th Jubilee from when the true, real, biological Israelites crossed over the Jordan River. It was in that year on the 10th day of the first month. But there was a lot that went on in that year. That year was a Jubilee. According to the book of Jubilees, it was the 50th Jubilee. There was a lot that went on this year. This is my 50th Jubilee timeline from year 1407 to 1406 BC right here. It started on the 10th day of the 7th month and went all the way through to the last day of the 6th month, the 31st day of the 6th month. The Israelites didn't cross over until the 10th day of the first month, right here within the Jubilee year. But before that Jubilee year, before they crossed over the river Jordan, there was a couple of battles going on with Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan. They had to conquer that land that Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad received. Now, they asked for their inheritance first. I suspect that these wars happen with Og and Sihon in the 7th and 8th, 9th month of the Jubilee year. I believe that the Balaam's prophecies happened around the 10th month, and the Israelites avenged the Midianites then in the 10th month. And then it was on the first day of the 11th month, which is actually today for the Americas, and it's tomorrow for the rest of the world as I'm preparing this video and editing this video, that's when Moses gave some final prophecies around the end times. This is the day that Moses was told to go up and die. That's why this day is so significant. because he was prophesying so much about the time of the end, and then he also prophesied about judgment on the Israelites, and that judgment timing is within the Song of Moses, and then he prophesied about the blessings on the Israelites as well. So that's why today is so significant, because I'm going to be going over the first part where he shares about the timing of this prophecy. Then they mourned for Moses the entire 11th month, 30 days after he died. Then Joshua took over. He had the 12th month, and they were just getting ready to cross over. And then the spies were sent sometime right before that time, like at the new year. And then on the 10th day of the first month, that's when they crossed the Jordan and entered into the promised land. Some people will say the 10th day of the first month is when the Jubilee began, but no, the Jubilee year is on the agricultural year, which is actually what people call the civil year of Judah, not the ecclesiastical year, but the agricultural year, which I've proven on my channel, that's what the Jubilee year is on. And the agricultural year is from the first day of the 7th month through the 31st day of the 6th month. But the Jubilee year, it becomes sanctified on the 10th day of the 7th month through the 31st day of the 6th month. And it's important to note in this time period before the Israelites crossed over that Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad, they asked for their inheritance early, and they were given their inheritance early, which is the land where Og, king of the Bashan, was, and also where the Heshbon was. So they got their land on the east side of the Jordan first. They got their inheritance first. And what happened was, that was in the theme of Jubilee. They asked for their inheritance and they received it. But they had to go. They left their wives and their children behind and their livestock behind in the land that they just conquered. And they had to go first. Those three tribes had to go first across the Jordan River. And they went across in battle gear. They were ready to go to war. Why? Because they wanted to get back to their wives and their children. Everybody says that the conquest of the Holy Land took 6 or 7 years. I disagree. That is way too long for these men, Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben, to be away from their wives, children, and their livestock. They wanted to get back to their homesteads. So they came out ready to just wreak havoc. And that's what they did. When they defeated these kings in the north, and then they went on the southern king campaign, and then they went on the northern king campaign, that was just defeating the kings. Of course, there was cleanup after that. But the main thing was defeating the kings. If you defeat the kings, you win the right to the land. And that's really what they did. And then they got back to their wives and their children sometime thereafter. As some Bible commentators suggest, 6 or 7 years was the time that it took for them to conquer the land. I disagree, because that is a way too long of a time for the men to be out for battle away from their wives and their children. So that's why I originally hypothesized that it only took the Israelites about 6 months to defeat the kings of the south and the kings of the north. That doesn't mean to wipe out all the people in the land. It just means for those two major battles, the kings of the south and the kings of the north. Think about it. It only took them about 3 months to get all this land, to beat Og, king of Bashan, and also Sihon, king of the Amorites. So to get all of this land right here, it only took them like about maybe 2 or 3 months, the 7th, 8th, and 9th month, if what I hypothesize on my timeline here, to conquer this much land and then be comfortable enough to leave their livestock, to leave their sons and their daughters, and to leave their wives in their land that they just won without any protection. So if you really think about it, they weren't gone from their wives and their children and their livestock more than like 6 months, more than likely. As soon as the Israelites conquered the kings, they basically won the rights to the land, and they more than likely, the half-tribe of Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben likely went back, or at least Gad and Reuben, went back to their lands here where their wives and their children and their livestock were. And that's what they had to come out here and just take care of business. So anyways, this is really important because there was events related. They asked for their inheritance. That's in the theme of the Jubilee. Okay, getting their land inheritance, and they got it first. Okay, so that is why I hypothesize that all of these events, there were events that happened before, in the Jubilee year, before the 10th day of the first month when they crossed over. So after the Israelites crossed over the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, they had to do the circumcision, then they had the Passover, the manna stopped, and then the next event that we get is the blowing of the Jubilee horns regarding the battle, the march and the battle around Jericho. Okay, in the book of Jasher, which I don't believe is a legitimate book because it has too much information that contradicts Jubilees, contradicts the scriptures, but there is some stuff that might be still preserved in it. It says that the March on Jericho, the Battle of Jericho, happened in the beginning of the second month, the first day of the second month. So that's something to consider when it began. It was for 7 days. Then after that, we have the covenant, Joshua's covenant on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And that likely happened, as I said in my previous videos, on the 15th day of the third month, Shavuot, which is not only the first fruits festival of the wheat harvest, but it's also the festival of the covenants, and more than likely they renewed the covenants on that day. Following that day, we have the Israelites were deceived. Joshua was deceived by the Gibeonites. And then we have Joshua's long day, which is the first battle. Okay, Joshua's long day happened. And that was part of the southern, the campaign against the southern kings. But that likely, Joshua's long day, we have a date for that using astroarchaeology, as I explained in my other videos. It happened in year 1405 or 1406 BC. Okay, so year negative 1405, which is 1406 BC, that's when this event happened. There was no eclipse during that event, but that event was like a day before or a day after Joshua's after the eclipse. Joshua's long day was like a day before or a day after or 2 days after the eclipse. So you have to take a look at my other video about that. Then, to finish off, that's at the end of the fourth month. Sometime there, that led into the southern victory campaign against the southern kings. And then after that, that was in the fifth, that would have been in around the fifth month. And then in the sixth month, it would have been the defeat of the northern kings here in 1 day. I believe the northern kings were defeated in 1 day, somewhere in the 6th month, and that wrapped up the Jubilee year. The Israelites won the right to inherit all of the land by defeating the kings. Yes, there was other people they had to kill and clean up. They still didn't drive them all the way out, but the conquest likely continued for like 6 years, as people have speculated on. The conquest had to continue, but the main battles of defeating the main kings was all done within this year. Og, king of Bashan, was defeated, and all of that. And then the northern and the southern kings were all defeated. So that's how I understand it. Okay, I've done a huge video series on this. If you haven't seen it, you've been missing out. We know that it was this year from the astroarchaeological information that's contained in Babylonian tablets, and also the fact that when Joshua's long day, that was about a day or two before or a day or two after a predictable solar eclipse. It was not a solar eclipse, but it would have been a partial solar eclipse in the land of Israel, and it was around that time. I've talked about that 6 years ago on my channel, and I've explained it thoroughly since. So this is something that you need to consider. The 50th Jubilee timeline, there was things around the Promised Land, events outside of the Promised Land in the future, but on the other side of the Jordan. And then, so we can expect some events to happen before the real part, the real land promised to go back to the Israelites, which is on the 10th day of the first month. As I explained 3 months ago on Yom Kippurim, starting the 70th Jubilee in this video, on that day I explained that there needs to be atonement made for the land of Israel. So atonement for the land has to happen in the Jubilee from all the bloodshed that has gone on there. There needs to be land atonement needs to be made. That was never made by Messiah Yeshua. And for a land atonement to be made, whoever kills blood, their blood has to be shed. So if you shed blood in the Holy Land, your blood has to be shed, which is basically resetting the land. That's what the atonement for the land, the law of atonement for the land of the Holy Land, is whoever sheds blood has to have their blood shed. So if you shed blood in violation of the Torah, your blood has to be shed, which means basically it's a reset on the land, and that needs to happen. And that happens when? In the 70th Jubilee sometime. So I am expecting some major disaster to happen within the Holy Land. I don't know how or when, but sometime within this year. That means that we are in the 120th Jubilee right now. So we have this nice spring rain. It's not, well, it's not spring. It feels like spring. It was amazing because the sun's out shining. It's probably about 70 degrees out here on the Mediterranean. It feels like spring. Doesn't feel like a winter out here right now. So let's go ahead and read the Song of Moses in the book of Deuteronomy. It's extremely prophetic, and Moses is telling us the time of the young grass, the time of the tender herbs. So the Song of Moses is in Deuteronomy chapter 32. But before I read that, I want to read the previous paragraph that sets up the Song of Moses. So Moses has encouraged the people. Again, this is on the first day of the 11th month. Moses read to them the law. He charged Joshua to take over. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book until they were finished, that Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, saying, take this book of the law and put it inside the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against thee. So it's there for a witness against the true Israelites. We know where the ark of the covenant is. It's in the Qumran, which is by the Dead Sea, according to the copper scroll. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I'm yet alive with you this day. Now this is the day he's going to die. Ye have been rebellious against Yahweh, and how much more after my death? Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. All right, heaven and earth to record. Heaven, rain comes from the heavens, and earth and the grass and the herbs come from the earth. So this is a clue into the timing of what's about to happen. For I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way which I've commanded you. And evil, right here, evil will befall you in the latter days. That's the days that we're currently in. Speaking of the Israelites, because ye will do evil in the sight of Yahweh. They've done evil in the sight of Yahweh. They have basically become false Zionists, and they're the hypocrisy and all the evil of the Western Israelites, more than likely, to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. And that's what we've seen. So this is what's going to happen. And Moses spake in the ears of all the congregation of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. So now let me go ahead and start the first couple of verses of the Song of Moses, so we can understand the timing when evil is going to befall the real Israelites in the latter days. It's going to happen likely in the 70th Jubilee, from when the Israelites crossed the Jordan, which is what we're in now. And it's going to likely happen. It's going to happen at the time that Moses is about to tell us, and I'm going to read it to you right now. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the fresh grass. And as the showers upon the tender herb. Because I will publish the name of Yahweh. Ascribe ye greatness unto our Elohim. It's sprinkling outside. What you just read were the words of Moses, the song of Moses that was spoke on the first day of the 11th month in the 50th Jubilee, the same day Moses died. It's currently sprinkling. This is a grass field right here. The wheat fields have been planted, and it's that time of the year. This is the young grass. Cyprus is about 2 weeks prior to the Holy Land getting rain. Cyprus got their rain first. What this is, Moses has concealed the timing of when these prophecies are going to come to pass. At the time of the fresh grass, the fresh grass, that's where we're at. That's speaking about wheat grass and barley grass, and that only happens when you get the first big rain. The first big rain here in Cyprus came November 3rd. I think the first big rain in the Holy Land was November 19th, and so they're a couple weeks behind Cyprus's big rain, and therefore the barley and the wheat grass in the Holy Land is going to be 2 weeks behind Cyprus. Yeah, it all depends on when they planted the seed as well, but just the natural seed is going to be 2 weeks behind as it needs water to grow. Okay, so I was able to find some video footage of the fields of Israel, fields of the Holy Land, and here it is from December 31st, 2024, of the wheat fields in the promised land of Israel. It appears that these are wheat. So this video is over 2 weeks old, 2.5 weeks old. So the grass has grown even more. But here you can see where they're at compared to Cyprus from about 2 weeks ago. So this is the fresh grass, this is the young grass, and that is exactly where we're at right now in the time. We are in the time of the young grass. We are in the time of Moses' prophecy. All right, so here I am in Deuteronomy 32, and I have the Strongs open, and I want to talk about this verse because here it says, Moses is telling him when his doctrine shall drop as the rain, okay? When his speech is going to distill as the dew. If you think about when dew distills, dew, for it to distill, it's first a water vapor, and then it becomes dew on plants. Okay, so that's very important to note. He's basically telling us when it's going to materialize. Yes, water vapor is a material, but water is a material. Vapor is not. So he is telling us when his words are going to materialize, when his doctrine is going to drop as the rain. It's going to happen. These things, this prophecy is going to happen when at this specific time. What time? As the small rain upon, it says the tender herb, but this actually, if you look at Deuteronomy 32:2, instead of tender herb, it's translated a lot of the times as tender grass, like showers on new grass, like rain on tender grass, like gentle rain upon the tender grass. Basically what I've been showing you in my video, what's happening here in Cyprus yesterday on January 16th, which is a day ago. Like gentle rain on new grass. So you have tender grass, you have new grass, all right, on new grass, as droplets on the fresh grass. So we're in the time, New King James calls it the tender herb. King James has it as the tender herb. But all the other translations, most of the other translations have it as the tender grass or the new grass or the fresh grass. Droplets. So not like huge heavy rainstorms, but just droplets. The stuff that we're seeing now, what we've seen recently. And again, back to this verse, it says that his speech is going to distill. Okay? So it's going to distill. Okay? This here it says, as showers upon the grass. I forget what translation has as the dew. Let me go ahead. If I put distill here. Okay, distill like the dew. Okay, my speech shall distill like the dew. So 21 times is translated as distilling like the dew. For dew to distill, it comes in something you can't see. You can't see water vapor in the air unless it's like a cloud that's built up as a cloud. But like in your room, there's humidity, there's water vapor in the air. And if you were to distill it, you can then see it. So Moses is telling us that his prophecy, his words, are going to come to pass at this time period. Maybe even as soon as tomorrow, on the first day of the 11th month. Maybe between now and there's a lot coming up in this prophecy. I mean, if we look here, this is tomorrow for us here, for the rest of the world, where I'm at, is the first day of the 11th month. Today, January 17th, the Americas are one day ahead. You're at the head of the year. So you're on your January 17th in Americas is really the first day of the 11th month. Our first day of the 11th month is tomorrow. Okay? But after this time period here, we have some significant events coming up. Everybody's thinking about the Passover is the next fulfillment, but Moses is telling us it's happening at the time of the fresh grass, happening at the time of the new grass. That time is now. We have Noah sending out the raven and the pigeon. It was not a dove, it was a pigeon. He was looking for the dry ground. Noah sent out a pigeon a second time and to return with the olive leaf. And then here on the 23rd day of the 11th month, this night, Zechariah received his vision. And then the following day is the day that Noah sent out a pigeon a third time and it didn't return. So peace is no longer, there's no peace. The olive leaf symbolized peace. And in this prophecy, the world was at rest and it was still. So maybe ceasefires were going on. And then that's when the writer of the Zechariah, it says the world is quiet and at rest. And then the rider of the red horse is seen in this prophecy. And it also has the nuclear ICBM, wicked fire offerings of Zechariah chapter 5. And Satan's rebuked. So we see a lot going on here. This is a big red flag coming up on the 24th day of the 11th month. Then we have this prophecy of Ezekiel, which is prophetic as well, possibly. Okay, coming down here. Ezekiel 32, 17 through 33. This is the watchman prophecy of the book of Ezekiel. The second time he's made the watchman. This is also the sword on the land. That's a major, major prophecy, high watch date. And then you have the spring equinox, which could be the wedding festival. Then first day of the first month. And then we have the 10th day of the first month, which is exactly 70 Jubilees from when the Israelites entered into the promised land. And then the first thing they did was keep the Passover. So we are in an interesting time period right now. We don't have to look all the way out to the Passover or to the first day of the first month or to the spring equinox. There's a lot going on right here today and in the next few weeks leading up to, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So 21 days leading up to Zechariah's prophecy of the nuclear ICBM missiles, the curse that's flying over the face of the whole earth. Typosaurus Rex was the first to push this out majorly on YouTube. I don't know where he got it from, but that was like 12 years ago or something, like 10 years ago. We've known about that for a long time. Now, if you've been watching, so that's something to consider. The 24th day of the 11th month, Zechariah had the prophecy of the rider of the red horse. We know the rider of the red horse in the book of Revelation carries the great sword of war, which is nuclear World War III. So that's something to consider. And that's really big stuff. So getting back to Deuteronomy 32, that's why I'm saying Moses hid this in here, because it's literally going to materialize. You're going to see something that you can't see. Water vapor is going to materialize into water, which you can see. And that's what's going to happen. And it's this right here. It's all about the judgment of the real Israelites. Okay, I didn't read this in that next to the passage, but I think I just have to go through it. He is the rock. His work is perfect. For all of his ways are judgment, an Elohim of truth and without iniquity. Just and right is he. They, the Israelites, have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation. Do ye thus requite Yahweh, O foolish people, and unwise? Is he not thy father that hath bought thee? Hath he not made thee and established thee? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. When the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Elohim. Okay, that's not the children of Israel, it's children of Elohim. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Okay, so according to the children of Elohim, for Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, in the waste, howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. Where? To Mount Sinai he took them. So Yahweh alone did lead him, and there was no strange El with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields. And he made him to suck the honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter of kine, and milk of sheep, and fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat. Thou art grown thick. Thou art covered with fatness. So that is interesting, because that is speaking of the present tense. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. And he's saying, thou art. That's present, waxen fat. He's speaking to the Israelites here. Thou art grown thick right now, the Israelites. Thou art covered with fatness, speaking to the Israelites. Okay, then he forsook him which he had made, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. And that's what's happening now. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to Elohim, to gods whom they knew not, to gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begot them, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten Elohim that formed thee. And when Yahweh saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a froward generation, children in whom is no faith. Did not Yahweh say Yeshua prophesied when the Son of Man comes, he's not going to find faith on the earth. All right? So that's just what it is. This is the time that we're in. Remember, before in Deuteronomy 31, Moses is telling the children of Israel what's going to happen to them at the end of the days. And that's exactly where we are at the end of the days. And Yahweh said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. That's speaking of right now. For they are a froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not Elohim. Okay. People have formed God in their own image. Okay. Yeshua, who is Yahweh the Son, Yahweh in the flesh, instructed everybody to worship Elohim in heaven. Christians pray to Jesus. There's nowhere in the scriptures where Jesus said to pray to him. They've completely changed the idea of what worship is, idea of who Yahweh Elohim is, the whole purpose his son came. Yahushua, the son, said to worship the Father in heaven. Okay? Everybody's, okay? Yeah, you should say pray in his name, but doesn't say pray to him. All right? They completely changed this with this false Christianity. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. Okay, for not being a people, I got to be out here right now. Jews are not a genealogical related homogeneous people. The Jews are not a homogeneous people. All of the Christians are Christian Zionism is like taking over Christendom. These people are evil and blind. The Christians are evil and blind. And I believe that their Christian Zionism is going to provoke Yahweh to anger because they're supporting people who are called Jewish, but they're just an ethnicity and a religion. The Jewish people are not a homogeneous Israelites. They are not. They are all goyim. They are just a bunch of mixed goy calling themselves Jewish because they are of the Jewish religion or of the Jewish ethnicity. So Yahweh is going to provoke the real Israelites to anger with a foolish nation. What foolish nation could that be? Possibly the Jewish nation? I don't know. For a fire is kindled in my anger and shall burn unto the lowest hell. Wow, okay, so this is nuclear weapons are stored in the ground. There's some that are rolling around on tanks, but there's also silos. And shall consume the earth with her increase and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. So this could be talking about World War III. This could be poetically talking about setting on fire the foundations of the mountains. Basically, nations poetically in the scriptures are countries. So this could be talking about World War III, or it could be talking about big old like volcanoes erupting from the lowest hell. So that's something to consider. It could be nuclear weapons coming out of the ground, or it could be something like this: set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them. Okay, I will spend mine arrows upon them. Okay, maybe nuclear weapons as far as arrows, we don't know, we'll see. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with the burning heat. So being burnt with hunger, when a fire rages, a fire is hungry. They shall be devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. All right, that is something to consider. Bitter destruction, maybe nuclear weapons are going off. That's bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them, the beasts being the nations, Goyim possibly, or nations like that, with the poison of serpents of the dust. Okay, nuclear weapons, uh, the radiation could be the serpent. The poison of the serpents of the dust could be the radiation, the dust radiation, the nuclear fallout. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. I said, I would scatter them into the corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men, possibly speaking of the Israelites here. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, or lest they should say, our hand is high, and Yahweh hath not done all this. So maybe it is volcanoes blowing up crazy. I don't know. And maybe that dust right here, the poison of the serpents of the dust could be the volcanic ash. For they are a nation void of counsel. That's speaking of the West. You look in the Western nations, if they're the Israelites, they are void of counsel. They're just brainwashed by the media. They're brainwashed by the politics, by the school systems, by all of that. They are brainwashed by their news media. They're brainwashed by their politicians that are corrupted and been bribed by Zionists. They're just brainwashed. Neither is there any understanding in them. They're stuck in a false paradigm, a false narrative. They cannot get outside of it. They can't really even see through it. There's just so many layers of lies that getting out. So like right now, that guy Wes Huff, he's like the most popular thing on the internet right now in Christendom, because he got invited on Joe Rogan, and this guy's like super popular now. And this guy is like the champion of Christianity now, yet he preaches that Easter is not pagan. He preaches that Christmas is not pagan. So see, there's so many layers of lies that people can't get through, and they're just stuck in lies, and that's just what it is. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. That's what Yahweh wants. Yahweh wants them to consider their latter end, that they would repent. But that doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. How should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them and Yahweh had shut them up? So it looks like something small is going to be able to cause a lot of damage. One chase 1,000, two put 10,000 to flight. Yahweh's given them up that something's going to happen to them, and Yahweh has shut them up. For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. So Yahweh uses nations to judge nations. And that's what we possibly see here in Deuteronomy 32. Even our enemies being themselves being judges. So Yahweh will use the enemies of the Israelites. He did this with the Assyrians. He did this with the Babylonians to judge the Israelites. And he's going to do it again here at the end of time, at the end of days, at the latter end. And notice I didn't say he did that with the Romans. Yet the Romans did do some damage to the Jewish ethnicity who had Judahites within them and some Israelites in them. Okay? For their vine is the vine of Sodom. Okay? LGBT, Sodom. and of their fields of Gomorrah, LGBT Gomorrah. So everything's all right. And their grapes are grapes of gall, and their clusters are bitter. So that reminds us of the wine of the what is the woman who rides the beast, the mother of harlots, the wine right here, the bitter wine. Their wine is the poison of dragons and the cruel venom of asps. Okay, so they're all drunk off this Babylonian wine of Disney. People watching Disney, shame on you if you're a parent, you've let your children watch Disney and be poisoned by that LGBT agenda. And they're just poisoned with all of these crazy spells of homosexual spells that they put on the children. Shame on the parents. All right. Is not this laid up in store with me and sealed up among my treasures? All right. Yahweh's treasures are at Qumran, the copper scroll. To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Well, we know that vengeance and recompense, per Daniel 9:24 on my channel, we know on my channel, brothers and sisters, that vengeance and recompense happens in the 70th Jubilee, per Daniel 9:24. Hallelujah. And vengeance and recompense happens on the land. The land has to be atoned for. Their foot shall slide in due time, speaking of the Israelites, maybe, and of the Judahites. For their day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. For Yahweh shall judge his people, speaking of the Israelites, also the Judahites, whoever they be. I think 10% maybe of the Jewish people are actual Judahites, possibly, and repent himself for his servants when he seeth that their power is gone. So something's going to happen where the Western nations are going to lose power. They're not going to be able to block the missiles that are going to be coming in, possibly. Their power is going to be gone to defend themselves, and there's none shut up or left. It's going to be horrible. A natural calamity like a huge earthquake or tsunami, or like a volcano could go off, and that could cause something to happen which allows their guard to go down for their enemies to get them. And he shall say, where are their gods? Their rock in whom they trusted. You know, their rock in whom they trusted, that you look at the big rock that they have there in North Dakota of all the presidents that they put their trust in. The American people trust in their presidents as if they're gods, just like the Romans did. Trump is now their god. That's the rock, and they trust is their presidents. They all are deceived by their presidents, just like Mount Rushmore. That's a big rock. That's the rock in whom they trusted in, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drink the wine of their drink offerings. Let them rise up and help you and be your protection. See now, even I am he, and there is no Al with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies and will reward them that hate me. So Yahweh has vengeance and enemies, and this is likely the Jewish state and also others. And I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the beginning of revenges upon the enemy. Rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. So first, before he's merciful to his land and to his people, he first has to atone for his land and his people. Per my video that I shared, that he has to do this per Numbers. This is per Daniel 9:24. Per Numbers 35:33, he has to make atonement for his land and for his people. But that land is occupied right now. It's occupied by Islamic Arabs. It's occupied by the Jewish Goyim, who says they're Judahites, but they're not. Probably 10% are Judahites. And it looks like that this is what this prophecy is speaking of. And Moses came and spake all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Hoshea, the son of Nun. He and Salvation, the son of Nun. And Moses made an end of the speaking of all these words of Israel. And he said unto them, set your hearts unto all the words which I testify among you this day. What day? The first day of the 11th month. It's not just the Song of Moses, it's the book of Deuteronomy. Okay? Which ye shall command your children to observe to do. Do Christians do this? All the words of this law, for it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life. But Christians don't want to do anything in the book of Deuteronomy. They don't even want to keep the 10 Commandments anymore. They just want to believe in their own ideas and eat their unclean foods and have their holidays that they love, Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and New Year's. And through this thing ye shall prolong your days in the land, whether ye go over the Jordan to possess it. So the Israelites didn't do this the first time. That's why they all got booted out. The Israelites went into diaspora, most of them. Some of them went back with Judah and kept the laws, but eventually they all paganized, most of them all. There's always been a remnant of true believers, but the Israelites lost their path. Most of them didn't come back, and it's just been a big mess. So they might get a second chance, but that second chance isn't going to come probably until the spring equinox or like the 10th day of the first month. I don't know. Or Passover on the 14th night of the 14th day of the first month. And Yahweh spake unto Moses the selfsame day, saying, get up this mountain into this mountain Abarim, unto Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, that is over against Jericho, and behold the land of Canaan, which I gave unto the children of Israel for possession. So the Jubilee is all about getting the land back. And he told Moses to die in the mount whither thou goest up, and be gathered unto thy people, as Aaron thy brother died in Mount Hor, and was gathered unto his people. Because he trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin, because he sanctified me not in the midst of the children of Israel. Yet thou shalt see the land before thee, but thou shalt go not thither into the land which I give the children of Israel. And then after that, Moses then gave a blessing. And this is very important, because if I just read the curses that are going to happen from not keeping the law, I need to also read the blessings. So bear with me. Speaking is not my strength, but at least I can think a little bit. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of Allahim, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, Yahweh came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them. He shined forth from Paran, and he came with 10,000s of his Kodesh ones, which is like Kadesh Barnea, from his right hand with a fiery law for them, the 10 Commandments. So what you have here is, I've been working on this in my expeditions to Jordan, and to Sinai and to Saudi Arabia over the last couple of years. But this is a treasure map to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, this is a treasure map. Mount Sinai, Seir, Paran, Kadesh makes a straight line. Might be from east to west, possibly. So here's my Google Earth project that I'm working on, Deuteronomy 33, verse 2. And we know that this for certain is Kadesh, or Kadesh Barnea, Kadosh. So that would put Kadosh here. Then you have Mount Paran somewhere like right here. Then you have Mount Seir somewhere like right here. And then you have Mount Sinai, which is somewhere on this straight line, either this way or west to east, this way or this way. He's coming from the east to the west, east to the west, east to the west, east to the west. So that's what I've been up to. I've been driving around a lot of locations in Saudi Arabia and in Jordan and becoming an internet sleuth, looking at Google Earth trying to find the location. But it's somewhere around in this pathway here, which is really interesting. So I'll be hopefully updating about that later on. The true location of Mount Sinai, Yah willing, I can find it. And this might happen on east to west, like as in on the day of the spring equinox, when the sun shines from east to west. Yea, he loved the people, and all his saints are in thine hand. So this is probably speaking of the resurrection, which happens on the last day, and that last day is the spring. The spring equinox is the last day of the solar cycle, so that might be something here. Yea, he loved the people, all his saints are in thy hand, and they sat down at thy feet. Every one shall receive thy words. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And he was king in Jeshurun, when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, Hear Yahweh, the voice of Judah, and bring unto him his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou an help to him from his enemies. And of Levi he said, Let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with the Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massa, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. Who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. So this seems to appear to what the millennial reign of Messiah is going to be like, okay? This is a blessing. So even though there's going to be a judgment on this day, there's also going to be a future blessing. So the judgment in the form of the curse of not keeping the law, there's also going to be this blessing. Bless Yahweh his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of him that hate him, that they rise not again. And of Benjamin he said, The beloved of Yahweh shall dwell in safety by him, and Yahweh shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. And of Joseph he said, Blessed of Yahweh be his land, for the precious things of heaven, and for the dew, and for the deep that coucheth beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth and the fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns, or wild ox. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. And of Zebulun he said, Rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas, and of the treasures hid in the sand. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. And he provided the first part for himself, because there in a portion of the lawgiver was he seated. So a portion of the lawgiver was seated in Gad, and he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of Yahweh and his judgments with Israel. And of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. He shall leap from Bashan. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full of the blessing of Yahweh, possess thou the west and the south. And of Asher he said, Let Asher be blessed with the children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. There is none like unto the Elohim of Jeshurun, who rideth upon the heaven in thy help, and in his excellency on the sky. So the eternal God, the eternal Elohim is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms, and they shall thrust out the enemy from before thee, and shall say, Destroy them. Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. The fountain on Jacob shall be a land of grain and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee. Okay, the Jewish people are going to be found liars unto the real Israelites, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. So the real Israelites are completely deceived by the Jewish ethnicity people, because they think that the Jews who are non-biological Israelites are the real Israelites, when they're their enemies. Yet they say that they're their greatest ally. They have all of the people in America, the Western peoples in America, saying, oh, the Jewish state is our greatest ally, but they're really your enemies. They're going to be found liars, deceived by Zionism propaganda. And it's important to note that at this time, Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. And that sometime, I guess, is the Israelites are going to be miraculously, supernaturally brought back to the land of Israel during this 70th Jubilee sometime. Maybe, I don't know. And then after that, while they're dwelling in safety alone at the end of that 70th Jubilee year, that's when Ezekiel 38 and 39 might happen, or right then, it might happen then, when they're dwelling in safety alone. That's when they're going to come down, and then Yahweh is going to save the real Israelites. I don't know. It's very hard to understand all of this. Again, I believe that 10% of the Jewish people are true Judahites, or Judahite Israelite mix. I could be biased in my understanding. I have no idea. I've never done a DNA test of ancient Israelite DNA. These are just my best ideas that I have. But there you have it, Deuteronomy 32, Deuteronomy 33. You have the Song of Moses, which is going to be judgment upon the Israelites, and you have Deuteronomy 33, which is going to be blessings and end-time blessings. Because this never happened. Maybe at the time of Solomon, Israel dwelled in safety alone. Other than that time at the end of David and Solomon, that's the only time Israelites dwelled in safety alone. So that's, again, and David and Solomon is a type of the millennial reign of the Messiah, Yeshua's Messiah, which is a whole nother story, and I'm running out. I don't have time for it, so you should just watch my videos on that. Everybody's looking forward to Passover for the next feast to be fulfilled. Everybody's looking forward to that. But Moses is telling us it's happening at this time of the year. We are in it. Now, Cyprus got their first storm about 2 weeks prior to the Holy Land. So the grass and the tender herbs in the Holy Land is 2 weeks behind Cyprus. This year, the first big rain here in Cyprus was 2 weeks earlier than in the Holy Land. But yeah, this is where we are at. Have the family right here. Everybody say hi. We're coming up on the 11th month. Moses is telling us, it's concealed in the Song of Moses. He tells us the timing when it's all going to begin. Here we got a rainbow, Halawayah. According to the covenant of Noah, you better be in the covenant of Noah, which is only to eat boiled flesh. You have to pour out the blood broth. You cannot consume the blood broth. The messenger of Yahweh, the angel of Yahweh, when Gideon presented his offering, his sacrifice, he had Gideon pour out the blood broth, and he did not consume the blood water. The earth is in violation. All mankind is in violation of the covenant of Noah, and that's going to lead to the fire judgment, because you guys eat with the blood. You consume the blood when you're supposed to boil the flesh and pour it out. The only time you're to eat roasted flesh is the Passover, which has to be done in Jerusalem. Eating with the blood, that's called eating with the blood. When you're eating fire roasted flesh, when you're eating fried flesh, when you're eating baked flesh, you're eating with the blood. The only way the righteous eat flesh is supposed to be without the blood, which means you have to boil it and you pour out the blood as water onto the earth. The man is in violation of the covenant of Noah. And that is why the earth is going to be judged this time, because they've broken the everlasting covenant. And there's the sign of the covenant now as I preach the truth to this earth, who loves their blood, who has a bloodlust and loves to eat their blood. Been preaching it for years. All the Christians and all the Messianics, you all should at least be in line according to the covenant of Noah. But you all eat with the blood. You're supposed to boil all of your flesh and pour out the broth. That's how it's supposed to be. You're in violation. And that's why the earth is going to be judged by fire. According to the covenant of Noah, worldwide judgment has to be it. That's the only other way I could see it in the scriptures. We are almost 2 months away from the new year. I hope to get a new calendar out. Hope that you're blessed. Hope that you guys are keeping the faith. Hope that you're all decided to enter into the covenant of Noah. I've been working on a big paper for everybody about the Psalm 19 calibrated calendar. It's true. The calendar is the 364-day calendar. David told us the calendar mechanism in Psalm 19. He concealed it. That time, hallelujah, we have the calendar. We have the covenant of Noah. We have the truth. So I hope you all are blessed as we watch. Big times coming up. That looks to be the big time. Just got a lot going on here. So walking in this rain as it's sprinkling. But this is the time of the rain on the fresh grass, wheat grass. So this is the time that we're in.